Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode. Wherever in the world you're listening to us from, whatever platform you're listening to us on, as I say every episode, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for the support, all the messages, all the great things that you've sent the show's way. So excited to, keep this going here on year 5 and bringing you all these really great conversations. And so happy that you're here listening, whether you've been here since the beginning, whether you just started listening. Truly appreciate you checking this out and really excited to jump into something that as coaches, it's not always easy to do. We talk about what's difficult about coaching and sometimes the game planning and the strategy and all the other, nuances that go into it. But as all of you listening know, one of the hardest things is keeping that energy, keeping that momentum going and keeping that positivity going. It's a long season. It's a long grind year after year. And as coaches, we got to make sure that we're keeping a high energy program. Our energy's high. We're making sure the players have a high energy, and that just translates to so much success on the court. And so I think this is definitely something worth dedicating an episode to. And I'm really excited to talk about it with you guys, with my guest. And so hopefully you're going to take a lot out of this. I know I will, because sometimes my energy ebbs and flows a little bit. So I'm really excited to also pick my guest brain here. And so we're going to go ahead, get this topic going with my guest. He is the New Haven Heat basketball family coach. Really excited to be talking to Coach Lawrence McGill today. Coach, again, appreciate you being able to come on and talk to us today. How are things going?
Good. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Awesome. Coach, let's jump right in with you. Your journey. Where is this great game of basketball taking you? Where's your coaching journey taking you? Excuse me. And how did you end up associated and working with the New Haven Heat?
So I had been a lifelong basketball player, from age 5, playing in the bitty basketball leagues up until going through middle school, going through 8 years of AAU, going through high school, and it ended up stopping there. Got a lot of recruitment my senior year at some small Division 3 schools. But financially, it just made the best sense for me to continue to run, to actually transform into the track side of things. So that allowed me a different sport, but I still stayed in love with basketball and everything, and still was a high learner and really always just paid attention to the upcoming trends. I would say any game that was on, I was tuned into it. And I think my old AAU coach really kept the love in me despite being a collegiate track athlete. I think giving me the opportunity to become a coach and being a coach under him. And Coach Richard Kennedy is a junior, is an amazing coach. He's been around for 30 years in the city of New Haven coaching a lot of the top guys who ended up playing in college basketball in New Haven. It kind of allowed me to respect him in a different light and take what he was kind of teaching me about the coaching business in a different manner. And me, his son, Coach Doc Kennedy, and a couple others, putting us under his wing for the first 2 or 3 years. And I'm 18, 19, 20 going through college. And I would say just listening to him and just seeing how he reacted, and he, coached guys up and things like that, I think really kind of transcended me for when it was time for me to, for him to take a step back and me to start coaching my own teams in the program and things like that. I think it allowed me to start really, I would say, honing in on what he taught me and then adding my own flavor, I would say, and my own passion to it.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's so cool to hear you talk about the different, inspirations. And it sounds like, Coach, like a lot of people from the way you're describing really also invested in you. Like they gave their energy, they gave their time and really poured into you. And that's something that it seems like you took a lot out of and are kind of giving back in return with what you're doing right now.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, honestly. Like just watching some of my coaches growing up, taking their times, giving rides, taking their time, pretty much taking their time, taking their energy. A lot of them were a lot older than I started. So they had families and things like that, but they were still so dedicated, coming to practices, coming to traveling to games, energetic, high energy,
Yeah.
motivating. And I think putting that battery, you could say, in our backs, I think allowed me to really not take that for granted and kind of apply that for me starting so young to have that energy and that passion.
Yeah, fantastic. That's so awesome to hear how it just kind of goes, from one coaching generation to the next, and then pours on to the next, and kind of the gift that keeps on giving, so to speak. That's really cool, Coach. I wanted to kind of pick your brain here before we get into this topic about coaching energy. I want to talk a little bit about skill development. That's such a high priority topic, I know, for a lot of coaches, talking about skill development and the way that players are playing and the way that players are developing their skills. You work with a lot of players. You have a lot of experience in that regard. So when you start to work with players, are there any trends? Are there things that you see a lot of guys need to be working on, and why do you think that is? And also, how do you kind of get them up to speed with the level they need to be playing at with that skill?
So I think for me, what I notice
Mm-hmm.
is the I would say off ball. I would say a lot of like
Mm,
off ball work, and I would say just the little things I think to how useful are you without the basketball in your hands? I would say that's the biggest thing for me that I notice with a lot of guys where, you know, when the ball's not in their hands, they kind of look lost on the basketball court.
right.
And for me, I think the first thing is just developing the basics. I think, and that starts from how to get yourself open, whether that's basic V cutting, things like that. And then you kind of work your way and kind of graduate on the level of difficulty and start building on that, where now you start coming off the different type of ball screens, the different type of actions, um, how to square your feet properly coming off those screens, coming off those different actions, and reading different looks. I think those are like the biggest things I try to instill and even try to give my players, things to look at and watch and give examples of those type of guys who are really good off the basketball and don't need the basketball to be effective on that end. And then another point, another aspect of the game I would say would be the defensive side of the basketball, I think. And I know a lot of coaches say, it's more on passion and more on heart, but I do also think there comes a physical standpoint in that sense where how's your lateral quickness? Are you taking the right angles to beat people to cut people off so they're not beating you to the spot? Taking charges, walling up, those type of things. I think there are so many drills that you can use to practice those type of things that I don't see enough.
Yeah.
I think, and I try to research and try to come up with my own journey, and thinking of ways that I've seen other people, and even talk to guys who were successful in certain areas like that, who are close to me. Like what did you do? The kind of trying to pick their brain a little bit to kind of add to my workout plans and practice plans and things like that.
Yeah, the defensive side is really fascinating because it's kind of as you mentioned, like the physicality or the technique to it. It's kind of that down and dirty work that gets involved with defense. You talk about things like positioning. You talk about things like footwork. I think, at least in my experience, it's something that really requires girls to be bought in, to really take the time and discipline to kind of learn those things. And then at the same time, it's kind of a difficult skill. It's kind of something that you kind of learn through trial and error. It's not always the most flashy thing in the world or the most thrilling thing to be doing, but it makes such a big difference that when you get girls or guys or any players rather who are committed to doing it and really understand the importance of it, I think you can see a lot of growth when you see people who are willing to put in that work with their feet work, their positioning, and all that great stuff.
100%. I think and it's so noticeable too. And the thing about it is, and I think the kids growing up now don't understand, sometimes a lot of coaches, the first thing they notice is how tenacious your defense is. That would be the first thing that comes right off the paper,
Yeah.
right off the video that looks at you. Like I always tell my guys about the famous Bob Huggins story from the coach from West Virginia, when he always talks about Javon Carter, how he walks in the gym at 8 in the morning, and the first thing he notices is this kid playing 94 feet defense and screaming and just diving all over the floor at 8 a.m. And Coach Bob Huggins had just got his coffee. And and you notice, and now look where Javon is now. He was a 4-year player at West Virginia and ended up being is a NBA journeyman right now. So I think that's something that kids don't understand. I think you have to find your calling card, and it may take, like you say, trial and error, but I think once you find that, I think you stick with that and continue to have that mindset.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you get any player, I don't care who it is, you get players willing to pick up 94 feet and dive on the ground at 7, 8 in the morning. Shoot, give me five of those to put on the court. Now I'll figure out a way to make the offensive work part where if I get that
Yep,
defensive buy-in, right?
exactly.
That's awesome. All right, coach, let's talk about, this term energy. It's a term that we see a lot in coaching. We see a lot in programs, and it's one of those where I think like everybody kind of knows what it is, but maybe not exactly like knows exactly like a good definition or how to really define what that would look like in a coaching setting. So let's start there. How do you define energy? What is kind of your definition of energy as it relates to like a basketball program?
For me, I think when we're talking about energy in basketball, I think it's, the constant movement. I think the constant movement, um, competing at the highest level. I think for the span of however long you're in the basketball game, whether that's for the full 30, 32 or 40 minutes, whether you're talking about college or 32 in high school, or whether you're in there for spans. I think when you're constantly moving, constantly talking, I think where you're uplifting other people just by the way you're moving and the way you're reacting to certain things, I think to me that is what I consider energy.
And so when you think about kind of that idea of bringing energy for you as a coach and in your experience when you get into a position, when you get into a coaching position, you get into a program for the first time, you're working with guys or for the first time, what is it that you are kind of bringing? What sort of energy do you personally like to bring or feel like you bring when you step into a program or step into a gym with guys?
I think for me, the first thing I want to be able to show off to the players is my passion because I think as I've been coaching over the last couple of years, I think noticing, when the kids notice the passion and they know how into it you are and how energetic you are, it's like, okay, how can I not either match that same energy or keep my energy higher than his at all times if he's doing all of this?
Yeah, it's the idea of like, but as you mentioned, right, that you always have to be bringing it, right? You have to make sure that every single day, that no matter what it is that's going on, whatever what's happening outside of that gym, that it's like you walk into that gym, I feel, and it's just like it seems like you're having the best day ever. Your energy's up high. You kind of throw everything else that's happening outside of the gym and just focusing on what you got to get done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think for me, it's, I made that commitment to give them my all for however long as whether that's for the spring and the summer season, or in case of high school basketball or college basketball, the whole winter. And I made that commitment to give them my all and my dedication. I don't think there would be any reason for me to shortchange them or shortchange myself.
Mm. Yeah, no, I know 100%. The idea that you mentioned of like they're making this commitment, right? They obviously made the commitment to play basketball and be a part of the program and get better and put in all that work. Like it has to be a two-way street. It's funny, I feel like we talk a lot about how, the players got to the buy-in and the players got to be a certain way, but it's also, the other way around that if you got a bunch of guys or girls who are ready to put in the work in and they're bought in and they're committed, but the coach is kind of up and down with their energy, letting outside things distract them or whatever. They're not holding up their end of the bargain.
Nope. And now it becomes a trickle down effect. And now you have to worry about, your players turning it on and turning it off instead of always keeping it on.
So to follow up with that specifically, let's talk a little bit about at New Haven. I wanted to ask you about at New Haven. What is the energy look like in that program? Somebody takes a step into a practice or a training session or a game. What is it that they're going to see that's going to make them think like, oh, okay, I can tell that this is like a high energy program just by being able to be in the gym and watch them.
I think for us, I think it's a lot of, constant communication, um, a lot of encouraging. I think we're always, and I think everybody's pushing each other to be better. I think being in a culture where I'm implementing, hey, we all are here to get better. And everybody has, and having that talk with everybody before the season, before this, we get in. So knowing each one of my players' goals and each one of the players' goals and knowing, hey, this is where, you want to get to. So we need to, treat practices, treat the games and treat training as such. So for example, a lot of my guys this year, I had a sophomore group this year, and a lot of those guys were like, hey, coach, my next goal is in 2 years, maybe three, to play at that next level, no matter the division. And for that, and for me, it was on my job, I would say, to really push that energy, push that effort out of them, whether they came in didn't feel like it, whether they were having a bad day or anything, or whether they were just in one of those high school boys moods, just being there and pushing them, but in the way where they're receptive to everything that I'm saying. And and if I'm coming across as motivating, energetic, passionate, you know, you could say kind of joking around with them at times just to lighten some of the mood occasionally, but just getting them going in a sense, I think for me allows them to, let everything off their mind and just focus on basketball and give that 100% because they know the goal at the end of the day. And they know I want them to reach that goal as much as I can help.
So from what it is that you're saying, I get the sense that relationship building and really getting to know your players really translates into that energy that is going to be seen in your program. Am I correct in thinking that you really got to have that relationship piece down so that the energy can kind of come from there?
Yes, yes, I 100%. I think relationship building is because then you know how to push kids in ways that they will be receptive to responding the correct way.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with that. That it's for me as somebody who's coaching on the girls side and those listening who coach, whether it's guys or girls, teenagers in general, it's very sometimes they have ups and downs, right? It's very touch and go sometimes with them, and to push them, right? To push them to their fullest, especially after they've had a difficult day or there's stuff going on without them, and you're out there being on them and pushing them and want the most of them. They have to have a lot of trust in you, and they have to really believe in that relationship they have with you, because if they don't, you trying to push them and you trying to make them go 100% in practice when they got other stuff going on. I mean, that's where you might run into some issues, or you might get some pushback.
I agree.
So what is, when you're working with players, when you're trying to get players to play at a certain pace, when you're trying to bring their energy up, my question to you is, like, how can a coach who's maybe doing some skill development, doing some skill training with guys, how can they kind of design those training sessions or design their practices in a way where it's high energy, it's up tempo, and kind of keeping it going, rather than kind of being a bit of a drag or a chore, just kind of something to go through?
For me, there were so many times this spring and summer where, the first 5, 10 minutes, we're going through warm-ups and it's a drag and people are coming in and may not have had the best of days. And I think for me it's a lot of I think I like to incorporate a lot of competitive drills. I think competitive drills, small-sided drills, I think allow small-sided games, excuse me, that really allow the kids to really start bringing out the competitive side. And then when okay, loser has to run, loser has to get losses. Loser has to do something. I think then you start incorporating that type of competitiveness and now the energy, because now, hey, I don't want to lose. I don't want to run those two suicides. Hey, I don't want to go sprint around the gym for 5 minutes or something of that matter. I think that really allows the competitiveness to show. Now the energy starts to bring out because now, hey, I don't want to lose. You don't want to lose. Okay, now we're going to battle and see who's gonna end up winning this.
So how much competition do you say is a part of these practices then? You don't have to necessarily give me a percentage, but like, are these highly competitive, winner loser, consequences for the loser type, like, training sessions and practices?
Um, I would say I would say half the practice, I think. I would say half the practice, I think we really try to incorporate, competitive drills and competitive, things that are working on both sides, whether we're focusing on offense, whether we're focused on, shooting games, working on setting our feet off of different types of actions, and or we're talking about, hey, we're doing shell drill, trying to get stops. Whether we're talking about trapping and rotating, those type of drills, and not letting the offense score out of those actions and things like that. I think that really incorporates a little bit of both sides of the basketball in different aspects.
So you're getting a lot in though. It seems like when you're in a practice situation, your guys, I can just tell by the kind of the things that you listed. Maybe you're not covering all of them every single practice, but I'll let you speak to this too. It sounds to me that there is a lot that you're covering. There's a lot that you're kind of going through from one thing to the next in those practices.
Yes, I for us, I think we kind of incorporate defense. We try to incorporate defense in every practice, no matter what we were doing, no matter when the tournament was or the next game was. We always try to incorporate defense because I always felt defense was so important, and I felt that's the if we want coaches to look at us, and that was my philosophy. We want coaches to look at us. Our first thing is we want our defense to be the standout thing on paper, and then let them see the rest of the game afterwards. But let the defense be the first thing they see when they come watch us. And for me, yeah, I'll just go stop from there.
Yeah, so it's well like it to kind of add to that, like it's cool that you're kind of talking about this kind of idea of like that identity, right? Like the identity of the program and the thing that when somebody from the outside like walks in, what is it that they notice right away? What is it that they can be like, oh, this program's all about this, or they definitely do this really well. And like it's kind of really cool to have something, and I think as you alluded to have something that's like really obvious. Oh, you walk in this gym, you know that we're about this, so to speak.
Yes, and I think it's not, and I think it's most of the teams in the program. I think when teams see New Haven Heat walk into any gym
Hmm.
during the spring and summer, I think they're going to see, okay, this is a tough, gritty team. They're going to have a lot of energy. They're going to play defense, and they're going to be talented. And they're going to be talented. So we're getting everybody's best all the time, and I think, but for us, I think it's also a testament to us, to the coaches in the program. I think building that identity where okay, teams where we get that respect, but we're also kind of, I would say, conducting our young men properly.
Yeah, yeah. There's a way to go about it. Now, you know what? That was something I did want to ask. I was jotted this down as an idea, and so maybe I should just ask it now about, when I think about a high energy program, I'm also thinking in my mind of players with high energy with each other, whether it's the way that they talk to each other, the way that they interact with each other, the way that they, give high fives or fist bumps and everything like that. But with that, obviously, you have players with a lot of high energy, right? You can also get high emotions as well. And so I kind of want to
Yes.
talk about it, at New Haven. What does that kind of look like where you're kind of getting your guys to keep that energy with each other and also keeping that energy positive? Are those conversations you need to have about how players interact with their teammates and the way that they sort of, go about their business? Is that something that they already kind of have down? What is that like, trying to tell your guys what it's like to be a teammate and communicate and have good energy with their teammates?
So that was a conversation I think I could constantly had. I think, how to talk to people, how to talk to your teammates the right way that will allow them to be receptive of what you're saying, and not in the tone, but exactly how you're saying it, and how
Yeah.
allow them to be receptive of the information and kind of, hey, okay, now I see what he's saying. Okay, I see I'm kind of messing up. Okay, but he believes in me. So now let me go out there and show him why he should believe in me. And so for me, I think that was something that I think I harped on throughout the year. I think every week I probably harped on it. But I think as the season got going and as the year progressed, I thought we did such a better job at that. I thought, the constant effort of, hey, you see how you like showing examples. Hey, you see how you talk to him in the way that didn't shut him down, but now that boosted his confidence and allowed him. And you see, he had a great last 10 minutes of the game. And pointing out those examples, I think that allows the kids to see, okay, I see how that affected him. So now I see, okay, maybe I need to start doing that with others. And I think that becomes a trickle down effect when you have a group. who wants to listen, I think it just becomes a trickle down effect.
And you have to, as a coach, it seems like from what it is that you talked about, really kind of, teach communication skills, right? Teach to your guys how to have those conversations with each other, because I don't think that's a skill. I mean, that's a skill a lot of adults struggle with, let alone teenagers, about how to, talk to somebody else and, try and be respectful about it, but at the same time either correct them or give them a little bit of guidance. And I know, in my experience, that's not something that a lot of kids, a lot of teenagers necessarily feel comfortable with, and it's something that they have to be taught. And it sounds like it's something, like you mentioned, that was a priority to make sure that you're teaching your guys that skill so they knew how to do it when the time came.
Yeah, no, but I think what that for me, I think it was a kind of showing example.
Hmm.
I think if I set the example and kind of showed it instead of, berating the kid when they mess up or things like that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
instead of hey, like hey, you missed the shot and you missed a few shots. That doesn't mean anything. The game is basketball games are full of runs. You always have to think next one is going to fall, next one is going to drop, and when I start in just incorporating those little, uplifters, I would say, like hey, I know you can stay in front of that man. He's getting by you too. He's killing you too easy. You got to maybe position yourself a little bit differently, but I know you can stay in front of him. Let's make that adjustment. And just giving those that positive reinforcement, I think really allows them. Okay, I can do it. And I think having and being loud enough where the kids hear me. I think now they're okay. I see he's responding to that way, so now I can't be berating my teammate that way if the coach isn't doing.
Yeah, and yeah, that's great, the way that you lead it by example. It's something that, as coaches, right, you gotta, sometimes you gotta catch yourself. I know I have before, where like my instinct sometimes is like I see something and man, I just want to like jump on that player for that mistake and get all over them for it. But then, I know that they're gonna, one, they'll probably shut down, or two, like then if I do that, then if another, if their teammate does the same thing to them, it's like, well, of course they are, because that's what I'm doing to them. So if they're gonna follow me as the example, and this is the way I treat people, and they make mistakes, they're gonna do the same thing with their teammates, and then it's like, well, then they get upset, right? Because it's like, oh, you're not the coach. Why are you talking to me that way? And then, oof, yeah, you have a whole situation on your hands.
Exactly.
So that also brings the point, though, of also having a lot of trust. And I think that there's, with a high energy program, it sounds like your guys have a lot of trust in each other, where they're saying things to each other to build them up. But I also get the sense that they believe in what they're saying. They believe when they tell their teammate, "Hey, don't let that guy get by you. You're good enough to stay in front of him and keep him in front of you, or you maybe missed a few shots, but I know you're going to make the next one." Like, I get the sense, coach, that there's a lot of trust, where your guys really do believe in each other and trust in each other's skill sets.
Yeah, so I think the thing about it is, most of the guys growing up around each other, and I think seeing each guys play through the high school, and even if
Hmm.
you didn't play, even if you played the year before, you played with another AAU team, and we played against them, or the kids playing against each other or playing with each other. I think that really allowed them to see each other's ability and know what they can do. So I think them knowing what they can do, I think allows them to say, "Hey, I know you can do that because I watched you do it before." And now, like you said, the game is full of emotions. It's a high emotional game,
Yep.
especially when you're dealing with teenage boys and, learning, and even with girls, I would say too. And I think, and I've noticed that this at all levels, even the collegiate level, where, some game is a high emotions, it's an intense game. And, there comes a moment where, a moment of adversity where, I would say, there may be some not talking to each other, getting on somebody not the way they should be. But I think, and it may be just for that moment, but what I try to tell my guys is that one moment can be a domino effect of things to come. And I think we always have to make sure, no matter how intense the game gets, how emotional you may get, you still have to find a way to communicate your point in a proper manner. And this is not just for basketball, because we also have to figure out, and we're not figure out, but we also have to learn and prepare for when we are working individuals. We also have to prepare how to talk to people and how to get things across in a manner that isn't going to be negative affecting ourselves or the team that we may be working on or things like that.
Yeah, yeah, those lifelong skills, right? Teaching our players things that they're going to use beyond the
Exactly.
basketball. Because at some point, all our players are going to stop playing, and the ball's going to stop
Exactly.
bouncing for everyone. But if they can keep those skills, then hey, lifelong skills that they learn through the game. I mean, sweet, that's what it's all about. I know, I love that. Um, there's a lot of ways to play the game, obviously, offensively and defensively. But if you're thinking about, like a high energy play style, some people listening are probably thinking to themselves right now, what can I run maybe on offensively and defensively that really brings a high tempo, high pace, high energy. So I'll let you answer that question, Coach, about what's kind of a high energy play style in your opinion? What do you think on offense or defense really gets guys going and really gets the tempo and the pace up on offense and defense?
So for my guys, I like to press a lot. I want my guys to be in shape, conditioned enough so we can press teams as much as possible. And I think early on in the year, we were trying to find our identity, whether or not we were a pressing team, I would say. But I think as the season got going and underway, I think the points where we kind of thrived in was those those pressure moments where we were picking teams up 94 feet, whether that was in a man press, zone press, trying to cause turnover, trying to cause some type of havoc, trying to get us out in transition, especially with a team that's, I would say we probably were full of guards. I would say we had maybe
Mm-hmm.
and then we had a lot of maybe wings, but that played forwards, but at the next level, they'll probably be wings. But they, for their high schools, just due to how their size and everything, they play kind of forwards. But I always try to get us in as much transition offense, as much transition opportunities as possible when we're causing turnovers, and then on the offensive end, trying to get up and down and space the floor. And because not us having a traditional big man, us running the floor hard, a lot of motion offense, a lot of cutting, screening,
Right.
and a lot of 4 out, 1 in, or 5 outs, and those type of offenses really allowed us to really get out and allow our guards and allow our 4 outs, 5 outs to really cause mismatches. Honestly, to find those mismatches and attack those mismatches.
That play style, is definitely one that, as I'm thinking about you doing it, and a lot of coaches, that 4 out or 5 out, there's a lot of, and I'll let you speak to this too, also a lot of freedom. There's a lot of decision making. There's a lot of things that your guys can do where they can take a look at the situation, take a look at the defense, and say, oh, like, oh, I know I can take this guy. I know I can, if this person cuts, I know I can hit him and he can finish, or this, that, or whatever the case may be. And I think having a system in place where your guys can, have some structure in place, but they also have a lot of freedom and decision making, and know that, hey, coach can trust me if I can make a move or I see something. I think that definitely does keep a lot of energy up.
Yeah, no, and I think for me, and I think my guys knowing for the most part, hey, I'm not going to be mad at if you take a like. There will be very few times where I'm going to tell you it's a bad shot. As long as we get a good shot, I have no problem on what the shot is, as long as we're getting each other involved and we're creating those mismatches and attacking those gaps, and trying to tell my guys, hey, 9 times out of 10, when the teams are playing, we're going to have 4 to 5 guys on the court who can all put the basketball on the floor. And for us, we need to be able to take that an advantage, and whether we get a smaller guy on our bigger wings or a bigger big on our
Mm-hmm.
smaller guards, trying to create those mismatches that allow us to really take advantage. And whether that's playmaking for themselves or for others, just getting good shot opportunities, getting a ton of shots and getting a ton of shot opportunities. I think for us was something that always kept us in the game, whether we were making or whether we were missing. Getting a lot of shot opportunities, I thought, always allowed us to at least stay in the game, and then letting our pressure do the rest.
Yeah, yeah, definitely something where your guys must be. And do you chart this, coach? Do you chart like how many shots guys are getting up and everything like that? I'm assuming it's pretty high volume that you're getting a lot of looks, getting a lot of shots up. Like you're really moving up and down, I'm sure, offensively.
Yeah, see, I didn't never got a really chance to chart the amount of shots, but when looking back at a lot of film, I definitely thought we got up at minimum 23s a game,
Oh yeah. Ooh,
20
players love that. Yeah.
yeah, no, he getting up to I would say about 23s a game. And I would say early on we weren't the best shooting team, but I thought, really emphasizing, hey, we want to be able to play at the next level as guards, we have to be able to shoot the basketball. I think that's the and I think harping on that, I think after the first month, we probably didn't shoot the basketball well at all. But we were winning games,
Hmm.
or we were in every game, but it was more due to our pressure and our defense and things like that. But our offense was the thing that struggled, and that kind of came along as the season progressed.
Yeah, something that definitely like a sounds like it was kind of like a thing of progress, right? It wasn't all built in one day. There was something there was layers to it, or there was kind of some struggle before they kind of maybe got the hang of it.
Yeah, no, I think the defense, I think, our defense was, something that I harped on it all the time. So I think for that, I think that was something that, okay, we kind of had for the most part, we had our glimpses where we'd be off on that side of basketball. I think our offense struggled early, everybody trying to figure out how can we all come together as one. Um, Not having everybody for every game, I think trying to, people away, people hurt, things like that. So trying to figure out roles and things like that
Yeah.
early on, I think was the struggle part. But then once the season progressed, the guys who stayed and remained and continued on throughout the season, I think knowing that okay, we have this group of guys now. Okay, now we know where we've already played a few months together. Now we know where people like the basketball, what's their favorite positions, what side of the court they want the basketball, what do they like coming off of flare screens? Do they like coming off of down screens? What type of movement do they like to do where we can get them the ball to be most effective?
Yeah, for that as a coach, right? There's trial and error to that as well. Like you're trying to figure out where guys are best fit at, or where they kind of fit in, making sure that guys are comfortable in what you're doing and everything like that. So as the players are also kind of figuring out their way in their system. You as a coach are trying to figure out how to put them in the best position as possible, and it may be a little up and down, or maybe a little inconsistent in the beginning. But I think going back to what we talked about earlier, if your guys trust you and your guys know like, hey, coach is going to do everything he can to put me in the best position to be successful, then they'll be able to kind of deal with maybe a little bit of that adversity in the beginning.
Exactly.
What about defensively, coach? You talked a lot about the passion on defense. Do you like running a lot of pressing, or man picking up, full court man to man, or what is your high energy kind of defensive style that you like your guys to do?
So for me, I like us to be all the way up, and I mean 94 feet pressure up in everybody's shorts,
Mm,
trying to jab at the basketball as the guard is bringing the ball up, trying to make him uncomfortable, and occasionally, throwing in kind of a Arkansas run and jump, trying to, first nearest man coming over the trap, turns his back, those type of things, trying to create different type of presses and occasionally throwing in a diamond press, just to confuse the defense a little bit. But I always try to keep us in man to man as often as possible because I want them to be able to be prepared because if you do get that opportunity to play at the next level, most schools I would say throw in zone occasionally, but it's so rare, outside of the Syracuse's at the Division 1 level, smaller Division 2, Division 3 teams that don't have the size, I would say, they may throw in some zone occasionally just to avoid mismatches. But for the majority, you're in man to man for 40 minutes. So
yeah.
being able to guard your man, being able to be in the help, being able to be in the gap, being in the help line if you're two passes away, those type of things. I think teaching those fundamentals, I think, was something I wanted to, stay in. I would say as much as possible. And if that meant, and there may have been times I may have cost us some games, because we have went zone some games, and that could have won us some games 100%.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I think it was less about, yeah, we could have won that, but am I getting them ready for the next level by us going into the zone when things get tough instead of, hey, let's adjusting. and locking into our principles and then making those adjustments.
I'm a man-to-man person, so I am loving what you're saying about picking up full court or doing man, getting right up in somebody's face. I mean, that speaks my language. That's my personal preference when it comes to defense. But you know this, and I know this, and I'm going to ask you this because I could probably pick up something from this as well, Coach. Is that got guys or girls playing man-to-man? They're high energy. They're trying to lock their person up. There is potentially a tendency to overplay, to be a little bit reckless, to try and do too much, as I know a lot of my kids like to say, doing too much. When you're working with guys and trying to get them to play not just high energy, but also be disciplined, also be smart, and not picking up cheap fouls or stuff like that. What are some of your talking points you go over with your guys to make sure that their energy is high, but they're also playing defense smartly as well?
So I think for me, I think the biggest, I would say, problem I noticed, and I think this was throughout the program, I think was, weak side help. I think
Yeah.
the weak side help. I think people being so focused on, hey, I want to lock my man down. I don't want him to score. I don't even want him to touch the basketball, that you forget about, hey, everybody, we have a goal to not let the ball get in the basket, no matter whose man it is. And I think whether everybody may not be on the same level defensively. We just have to be out. Everybody may not be as laterally quick or as hungry on that side of the basketball per se when playing man to man. So there may be sometimes where people will be getting blown by, or somebody makes an easy move or maybe no move, and they're able to just get by their man consistently. But not having that help defense, that avoids the point of man to man defense, because now they're just getting buckets. We're not making no adjustment. So I think for me, I think with my guys, I think he's telling them, hey, our goal is to not let the team score, not just your man, the team. So we have to be able to continue our man-to-man principles where we have to be in the help line. Everybody should be in a gap when your man doesn't have the ball. If your man's farthest away, you should be in help. You should be in the help line, no matter, even if unless your guy is killing and he's the only one, and I'm telling you face guard, then that's different. And I think sometimes because the game is emotional and the game is high, it's
Yeah.
hot, such high level, sometimes you have to reiterate that over and over and over and over so it gets through their head. And then in practices, working on those closeouts, closing out under control, and those little things.
It's one of those situations, Coach, where I'm in the same boat where we got man-to-man defense and players take a lot of pride in guarding their person, but understanding the team aspect sometimes, right? The team aspect that goes with man-to-man and where to be in help and where to make sure, as you mentioned, right, that it's we don't want the other team to score, not just your person to score. And that that buy-in is huge. And for your players, I know it's a lifelong process as their basketball players to really understand that. But what did you think happened, or when did you think your guys really started to make strides and really kind of understand like the team part of man to man defense? How long do you think it really took for them to kind of get going on that?
I think it took us until probably the last month of the summer season. Honestly,
Yeah.
I really think it took about until the last month where we kind of understood, hey, like we had like our defense for us to win basketball games, we're going against a lot of guys. We're going to be undersized 80% of the time. So we have to be able to help the helper at all times. And which means we can't be lazy, we can't jog to the next spot. We always have to be able to be on high alert to be able to help recover, show, and get back to our man and get back to where we need to be for us to be the most effective. And I thought I would say five, about 5 weeks of the season, I thought we played amazing on that side of the basketball, just in terms of, applying pressure. Somebody gets beat, hey, talking. And I think our biggest problem was
Mm.
talking.
Talking's
Not,
huge. Is that
not
something?
communicate.
How does that get taught, Coach? Or what are you doing? I know we all complain as coaches about
Oh
that,
man.
but
Oh man. I think for me, I think it was something, I think it was something just in a sense, we're not going to talk. Next practice, we're going to run. We're going to run when we
Uh-huh.
don't talk. And I think it was something, just making them understand, hey, if I don't talk, I'm going to be running and things like that. And them understanding that, I think, kind of helped. But it's like you said, it's something that's going to be a lifelong problem as long as they're basketball players, whether they make it to the collegiate level or wherever level, going to that next level. I think I see it at all levels.
Yeah,
Constant
yeah.
communication is and I think they don't. I think most don't realize the constant communication is what makes teams better and makes them and creates more team camaraderie. Honestly,
Yeah, absolutely. It's not ever natural, right? I think we always joke, right, that our players are always talking to each other. They're always having conversations outside of practice. Then they get in the gym and they're like dead silent.
yep, yep,
Right? And it's just like, wait a minute, like, well, can't we take some of that talking that you do all the way outside of practice? Can't you bring it in here? But to your point, it's just something that they're not comfortable with, or they're not really used to what you're saying. And I think some of it too, coach, and I'll let you speak on this too, is I think some of our guys just maybe don't really understand, or their knowledge of the basketball game on the court maybe isn't as high. Maybe they play a lot, AAU pickup and they do all this, but maybe their understanding of the game isn't as strong as we might think it is. And so they may not even know what to say or when to communicate it. And that's kind of where we got
yep.
to step in.
And I think, and for me, I always try to, and I think for as long as since I've started, I've always tried to incorporate, go watch basketball. And I'm not talking about, the
Mm-hmm.
NBA because, they're getting paid to do those type of things. But I'm talking about going to watch a high school basketball game, going to watch a college basketball game. I tell my guys, you guys should go watch girls play. Go watch girls play because one thing I notice and I love about the girls game is, there's constant communication. I hear girls talk all the time on the court. I don't think there's a time where they're not talking, especially the really good teams. And I hear it so much. And for me, I love going just to sit and watch sometimes, just because just seeing those little fundamental things and just seeing those little tactics as they do. And I sometimes I go to games and be writing notes in my phone sometimes, just like, okay, see how they're doing this and things like that, and just kind of just going back over those notes and trying to communicate those things with my guys.
It's I appreciate that. Little shout out to the girls game, coach. That means a lot as a girls coach to hear, to hear you shout us out here. It's yeah, that's just appreciate that. That's fun. A lot of good stuff happened in the girls game. I know a lot of coaches know this. If you're listening to this, you know this, but just spread that message out to everybody so that they know that there's great stuff happening on that side of
Absolutely.
the that side of the basketball world too. Um, let's talk, coach, and I think that it's worth addressing, and I want to make sure that we kind of talk about it, and you talk about it about, energy killers. As coaches, there are things that we could do, whether even we realize it or not, that can be things that just kill a team, and they're hard to recover from. So let me pick your brain on those, coach. What are things that coaches do that can just kill the energy of a team, and what do you think are the reasons why they're so hurtful to a team when coaches do them?
So I think the number one thing is body language. I think, I've seen it so many times, and I would say early on in my coach, I've been guilty of it as well. I think is the body language. I think, when things start going wrong at certain points in the game, you know, you stop talking, you start yelling, and it's not yelling to encourage, it's yelling to because things are going wrong and you're not, and you think they should be going a different way, and you're yelling in a sense that's just not uplifting. That's you. I would say putting them down in a sense, like you guys don't want to do this, and in a sense that just deflates the energy of the team. And I think early on. I think I was guilty more of not the communication aspect. I think the body language aspect. Throwing your hands up. Just going to sit down, hands over your head, sitting at the end, sitting it down, and your hands, your head is almost in your lap, and those type of things. I think many coaches have done that at some point during their journey, and I think when you realize, you're like, okay, maybe this has been something that, this was something that, kind of killed the momentum or killed any hope of us even coming back or picking that or turning the switch back on per se.
I imagine something I've done before. I'm picturing you say that answer, and I can picture me, and I've done this before. I'll admit it, where I had a player who did something. Maybe it was just like a careless turnover. I don't know what it is. And then I just, I'm a guy who usually is up, and I'll move a bit, and then I just like sat down after that, and I just kind of sat there, sort of crossed my arms, didn't say anything, but like everybody knew, like, oh, like just by his body language, he's like completely done. He's completely like over everything, and then it's like, oh well, not now what do we do? Because it seems like coach has just sort of given up, and he's just thrown his hands up in the air, and I know that that didn't help our players whatsoever when I did that sort of thing.
Yeah, same, exact same. And I think for me, what I noticed, I think as of like recent, I would say recently over the last couple of years, and just picking and thinking about those things. I think for me, when I catch myself doing that or anything, I always like to give an uplifter after I'm clapping my hands. Hey, let's get back into it. Let's get back into it. Let's get focused. And kind of start encouraging again. So it's like, okay, he hasn't lost all hope in that sense.
And to add to that, I think that that's really important in particular for teams that are rebuilding or struggling, because you can't define success just what's on the scoreboard. And it's really easy to get discouraged when things aren't going your way and just be, completely, stressed out or just, over everything. But at least, because I've been in that position, I'm not sure exactly about all your situations, coach. I've been in programs where it's like the wins and losses aren't necessarily going to be there, but there has to be a certain level of energy that always has to be there. And I'll look towards that more than I'm going to really look at what's happening on the scoreboard necessarily.
Yeah, no, and I think especially for, up and coming programs and programs that, are, I would say, that are in a drought. I think the energy, it's so tough to, how can, like, have that positive energy, I would say, when you're losing more often than not instead of winning. And I think when you kind of preach a goal, and hey, it's not about the wins losses, it's about getting better, improving. How do we improve game after game, week after week, day after day, year after year, where we reach our ultimate goal, especially when you have younger teams? I always say the younger teams, especially, are going to go through those bumps and bruises, but how is it that you get better every single day? That compounds, that 1% is compounding continuously, where 2 or 3 years down the line, when, let's say, you have a bunch of sophomores or freshmen, and then by the time they're juniors and seniors, you know, what you do in that energy that you bring early will can either help or it can hurt.
Yeah, yeah, no, I like that a lot. That it's you got to zoom out, right? You got to zoom out and think big picture and long term, and it's easy to kind of get super frustrated in that one moment, that one game, and everything like that. But there's a bigger picture going on, and there's always learning, and there's always things that can happen. And to that point, right, if you're going to be somebody who's just going to like shut down and be over it, when maybe you're losing by 25-30 and it's the second quarter, well, now your players have just missed out on all that learning opportunity they could have had in the second half if you were still engaged, if you were still coaching, and that learning may be something huge that could have been carrying them over in the next week or the next year, but you kind of didn't give them that opportunity because you as a coach just sort of just gave up.
Exactly.
So I wanted to ask Coach before we wrap up here about for you personally, what do you do, like whether it's in away from the gym or in your personal time, to always make sure that your energy is up? How do you kind of be able to kind of put everything aside that might be going on, or be able to kind of take care of yourself in a way that you're always being able to give your best to your guys? What goes into taking care of yourself personally so you can do that?
So for me, I think it's all, I think basketball, I think my love for the game, I think is something that that just allows me, okay, no matter what's going on, I know this hour of practice, this drive to the game, or this training session is, I think for me, is something. Hey, I can let everything out in a sense, in a positive manner. Just get my. I don't have to worry about anything else outside of the gym. I can just focus on what's going on right now in this specific moment. And I even translate that to, I would say, the coaching aspect, but also, me continuing to just play just because I enjoy the game of basketball myself, just being able to play in my own spare time. Just that, or just the game itself just helps me just get my mind off whatever is going on in my life, my busy life, I think.
Yeah, like you have that that love, it sounds like, coaches just like never went away. Like no matter what maybe has happened in your coaching career, whatever's happened in your basketball career, just by the way that you talk about it, like your love is has never gone away. So just being in the gym, I'm sure just like refills you completely and just has your gas tank on full.
Yeah, no, for me, it's just something that I like. It's something for me. It's like, okay, like this is my weekly outlet. Like no matter how busy my schedule gets, how much work I have going on, how many hours I'm at work, I know this day of the week, these 1 or 2 or 3 days, I know these 3 hours are
Hmm.
going to be the best 3 hours I can go through just because I don't have to worry about anything else.
Nah, that's great. And I love it, Coach. To wrap up, Coach, there's a couple questions I ask every guest. I'm going to go ahead and start with this first one. Uh, Thinking back on your coaching career, what is a specific moment from your coaching career that you think by sharing it, our listeners would be able to learn from?
Trying to think, oh,
Yeah, it's tough, right? Isn't there so
it's a
many
tough,
moments like that, right?
it's
It's
a
like
tough
all
one.
it's like you have so many, and then it's like you get asked the question sometimes, and it's like, oh man, like what is
That's it.
one?
Yeah, what's a coaching one of yours that you can think that we can learn from? I think for me, I think one moment, I would say is just, being the person, I would say being one of the most energetic people, most people can meet as a coach. I think for me, I think really allows my guys to, it always allows them to kind of, they can never get down. And I think a great example of this was, I would say we had a tough game. First game of our last tournament. It was tournament style. Win first game, winner go home. And I think the game looked like it was over. Being down 20 and 8, 9 minutes left in the basketball game, I think most coaches are probably looking like, okay, it's not looking great. And I think for me, I think just being that type of person where I've seen comebacks happen in 4 to 5 minutes, double digit comebacks, and so for me it was something where I told my guys, hey, this game isn't over until it's over. We know we can play with this team because we proved it before. We just
Yeah,
have to go out and give a nice 3 to 4 minute stretch where we can kill their confidence and increase ours. And I think for me, not never seeing my guys more encouraged. I think in a moment where most teams, I think, would not have that type of energy and that encouragement coming out of a timeout. And I'll never forget it because that was my last time out of the game with about 9 minutes left. And most people were like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah,
so much time left in the game. But for me, it's like, this is kind of like a last moment hope. Like, hey, how can I reach these guys without, how can I reach these guys to keep our season alive?
yeah. So what do you think, coaches, about that moment? What keeps that fresh in your memory? Is that something that you kind of draw from often? Is that something that sort of you kind of just finds its way in your mind at the right moment? What kind of keeps that fresh in you?
Um, I think, well, one, I think it was that it's been one, kind of two things. I say one, it's kind of the most recent,
Yeah,
and then two, there's been multiple games like that, and it made me think after that comeback when it kind of made me think of, over the years, there's been a few of those where, the energy level and me not giving up and, you know, cause that constant positive and reinforcement, I think allowed us to make those type of comebacks. And I felt like I've been on the right end of so many comebacks, but I've been on the wrong end of so many comebacks. And I think that was one of the biggest ones that I've been a part of. And for me, that was like, okay, everything that we discuss, everything that we go over, anything that we try to teach in terms of energy kind of helped kind of resurface itself.
And I mean, right, that translates well. That was like such a story that you mentioned about how energy was such an essential component to that, comeback and that happening. Without that energy, it probably doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Awesome. Coach, to wrap up, I give every guest kind of what I call a 60-second soapbox. You can go over 60 seconds though. I'm not going to time you, but I like to use this kind of as a way for you to kind of get out like a final message, a closing thought, something that you just kind of want to leave the listeners with. You can take it like any direction, basketball and coaching wise, you want. It's going to be your soapbox, coach. So I'm going to put you on the spot one last time for you to hop on your soapbox and kind of take it from here.
So, okay, well, so I think for me, I think one idea I want to get out, and I don't know how many young listeners you have, but really getting out the idea of, being coachable. I think, and I think coaches as well, especially at the young, at the, I would say middle school level, high school level A travel basketball levels. I think us as coaches kind of have to, prepare our guys. Like if we have the goal, we want our guys to be successful in this basketball space. I think us sometimes teaching our kids how to be coachable, because not everybody just has it right away to be coachable. Where they're always going to be the most polite, the best behaving, just just the kid who just has the positive energy all the time. Because like we see all the time, coach, kids are so up and down emotional wise. I think us being able to teach them right from wrong in certain ways, especially when we care about them, and we, a lot of times we don't do it for anything but the love of the game and wanting to see the next generation succeed. And I think one aspect of that is teaching them how to be coachable, teaching them how to receive criticism, those type of things. And I think that's something that I don't see a lot of coaches focusing on, that I think we should focus on more.
Mhm. That's a really good point, Coach. I appreciate that's a good soapbox topic. I wrote that down. I'm gonna share that. We actually do have a lot of young listeners, Coach. We got a lot who are first time coaches and people who are just kind of hopping into the profession here. So I think that's some real good insight here. You're giving back for sure by that.
Thank you.
To conclude this, Coach, thank you so much. This is so much fun to talk about high energy program, high energy coaching, bringing it every day. I can definitely, kind of feel your passion through this conversation. It's been a lot of fun. Best of luck as you continue your work with the New Haven Heat and all the great stuff that you're doing over there, Coach. Really appreciate it. Listeners appreciate it, and keep doing what you're doing, and keep getting after it this next coming year.
No, thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to join your platform. I really appreciate the opportunity so much.
Of course. And thank you guys so much for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.